All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone joining today's sections, and also thanks Jatin to present these topics together. We all together. Okay. So in here, actually, I would like to share with you is that we see a very good momentums. Our customer moving their workloads to the cloud, and obviously, if they are moving quite a lot of VMware to the cloud, VMware clouds, not to mention Oracle or others, will be a good choice. Okay, and then it helps you to bridge and achieve the multi-cloud strategy. And of course, we see so many customers moving their VMware's workloads to Oracle Cloud. And the solutions in Oracle is called Oracle Cloud VMware Solution. It's a very on-premise like a VMware solution. And then you have a full control of the VMware stack. You have a root access. Okay, so it's very much just like VMware. Okay, so but before you moving your workloads to the cloud or to the VMware cloud, Oracle's cloud VMware solution, we call it as OCVS. Okay, there are some things you need to know before you moving. Okay, so I would like to share with you what we see and observed in the market. So the common reasons our customer move their workload to the cloud is that, for example, they have a cloud first strategy. They really want to adopt cloud, and especially after the COVID-19, so many customers move to the cloud. Okay, and the second one is data center exit. We see more customers from Japan and Australia. They are really moving out the entire data center. I guess the running cost, the operational cost, the lands, the data center, and also the powers is very expensive, right? And also in EMEA, power consumption or the power is electricity bill is very high today. So customers move out from their data center. And then third thing is that the customer, they like to build a DR. We see more from ASEAN. Okay, they want to build a DR second site for VMware, and some build it for handling those ransomware. And of course, some customers just run out of their hardware capacity, or their hardware is just too old. So they want to looking new hardware, okay, to replace or to support their new business. And of course, the virtual desktop, okay. But we see more about those key consideration when they move their VMware workload to the cloud. The first one is the day one migration. How fast I can migrate everything to the cloud, right? You have a couple options. One is to migrate to cloud native, but of course that will take you very long time, maybe a year. And then the second one, obviously, is move to the VMware cloud, okay? And OCVS is one of the options. Then second one is how easy to migrate. If some people just want to keep those operations intact, as same as on-premises, right? And then in the day two operation, many customers will think, can I control the VMware version and patch level? Especially for those customers running some packaged application. So give you an example. My customer run Avaya call center, okay? And then Avaya's call center, they do have some requirement on the VMware version. And the second one is that the customer run Vim, okay, Vim backup. And they also have a requirement on the VMware versions. They support certain version, right? So if you cannot control the VMware stack, the version of patchings, then sorry, you may need to upgrade your Vim backups or Avaya call center or other application at the same time. Okay, so this is their consideration for day two. And of course, those tooling script, are you able to run, continue to run, okay? And then the day end mobility, can I migrate back the VMware workloads to the cloud? This is compared to move to cloud native, right? And if you move to OCVS, yes, of course, you can move back very easily. You can move those VM live migration, okay, very easily. And then the risk and security, it is a risk-free or risk-less, or do I own the root or admin password? or do I have the end-to-end network control? So for example, some customer, they will be more keen about the root access and root password, especially those banking industry. And that's why there are many bankings in India, they choose OCVS. And then the last one is cost. So do you want to, so even you commit to use OCVS for 3 years, right? You don't need to pay 3 years all upfront, but you're still able to enjoy 3 years commit price. It's much, much cheaper. Okay, so this is all the consideration our customer when they choosing OCVS or other cloud. Okay, so what is OCVS? Actually, OCVS is quite simple. It's just VMware. It's very, very like the VMware environment on premises. On top, you run vSphere, vCenter, vSet, NXT, and HCX Advanced. Okay, and then on the server side, actually, you have two choices. You can run Intel Skylake. Okay, CPU, it comes with 52 core, and also the other choice is AMD CPU. Okay, so and also you can run single host, for example, for development testing, or you can run 3 to 64 hosts per cluster. So that will be very, very large cluster actually. Okay, think about if you run 128 core and then the 64 hosts, that would be more than 8,000 core per cluster. Okay, so that will be huge. Okay, and then here is some further comparison. OCVS we provide broadest range of offering in the market. We not only provide Intel, we also provide AMD, and also we have give you the choice from 32 core to 64 to 128 core. And it comes with 2 terabyte memory and 54.4 terabyte NVMe. So this one actually will be very good for data center exit or massive workload. And this one will be very, very good for memory hungry application, okay, or storage hungry application, because it comes with a much RAM or much storage per core. Okay, so you have the choice to pick up any shape you like, and it is available in 40 data centers in worldwide. Okay, and we plan to have 44 cloud regions by 2022. Okay, it's just a couple of days to go to see if we can provide more cloud regions before end of 2022. Okay, but in India, we have 2 data centers. One is in Mumbai, the other one is Hyderabad. So you can set up productions in one side and DR in another side. Okay, so we have customer running in this scenario, okay, in India. And the reasons you choose OCI or Oracle Cloud, right? Let's look into the analytics. They say OCI has the highest customer satisfaction, okay? And then compared to others, OCI provide you the lower average base IS price, okay, compared to others. And if we look into the team, Factex and Zoom, they choose OCI for multiple reasons. For example, the multi-cloud, right? We can connect to Azure. Okay, you can run application or SQL Server in Azure, but running application on OCVS in OCI. Okay, and of course, the Factex, they choose OCI because of the cost and Zoom because of cost again. Okay, so what kind of a use case, right, OCVS can support? And typically we see one is data center exit. The second one is DR. Third one is capacity expansion. And then the last one is running virtual desktop on OCVS. You can run VMware Horizon or you can run Citrix. We have a customer run both. Okay, so some customer run Citrix, some customer run Horizon. Okay, and then if for data center, right, what is the benefits to you? I would say it will be the safest and fastest ways for data center exit. Okay, compared to one-off go to cloud native. If you move to VMware workload to OCVS, it will take you just a couple months. There are so many customers, they move hundreds or thousands VMs in months, not years, okay? We have customer in India, they move around 170 VMs to OCVS, including all setup, okay, landing zone setup, all setup, okay, they move 170 VMs in around 3.5 to 2.5 to 3 months, okay? And then after that, actually you can migrate or modernize your application to be cloud native anytime. So the first one, the benefit is fast migration, low risk, is a VM to VM, right? You can drop on-premise VM very quickly. And then second one is once you move to the cloud, you can access to 100 adjuncted cloud service immediately, such as a GPU, HPC, AI, ML, or database. And then third one is that you can transform to the cloud native in your own pace, right? Okay, so I give you some customer. Purposely is a very, very typical. They migrate their SaaS-based application to OCVS. Previously, they run on VMware's on premises, and they look into different options. For example, those colo options, or migrate to cloud native, or migrate to OCVS or other VMware cloud. And eventually, they did a POC, and then they decide to move to OCVS. And the backup time actually is speed up so many times. It's around 10 to 12 times faster for the backup and restore, because Oracle's object storage is very, very fast, okay? And then the second case, so if you are thinking about the DR, right, then OCVS will be very, very cost-effective solution for you. Okay, the reason I'm talking about this one is, the first one is because OCVS come with a very huge NVMe storage, okay? It is a 50 plus terabytes per server, okay? And then it can also allow you to attach block storage to the cluster. It's attached to vSAN level, okay? So it means that once you are going to build a DR, right, you don't need to create 10 or 12 hosts as on-premise. You just need to create maybe 3 hosts only, the bare minimum, right? Okay, and then in the day 2, actually, if you run out your storage, actually you can attach more storage, or you can add in more hosts, up to you. But if you attach more storage, the cost will be much, much cheaper than other cloud vendors, okay? For example, in Oracle's, right? Oracle's block storage costs you around $522 per terabyte a year, compared to if you run additional host from other cloud vendor, right? That will cost you $1,300 or $2,800 per terabyte per year. Okay, so this one will be very, very cost effective. And then later on, once you fail over to here, then you can scale out your cluster to provide 100% capacity. And then if you don't need it, you can scale in. Okay, and then this server, actually you can use a maybe hourly commit. Okay, so you use 24 hours, we charge you 24 hours only. Okay, so this one is Maxims. Maxims is a Hong Kong customer, and they evaluate on-premise solution. They also evaluate OCVS, VM, and other VMware clouds, right? They found out that OCVS actually is very cheap compared to others, even compared to on-premises. Because why? Because they can just run 4 hosts of OCVS on the OCI to cater 11 to 13 hosts on premises. So what they need is, right, is about 120 terabytes storage. So it is a 4 hosts, okay? But once they need or fail over to the OCVS, they can scale out to 7 or 8 hosts to provide 100% CPU capacity, okay? So they found out the cost actually is a very, very cheap, even compared to on-premises. Okay. And then the third one is for the capacity expansion. So most of the time our customer will use it for development and testing for UAT, right? So what is the benefit of using OCVS? The first one is that you can use single host SDDC without any time limit. Okay, so you can run it more than 60 days. In the other VMware cloud, you will be limited and bounded by 60 days. After that, you need to scale up to 3 hosts. But in OCVS, no, you can run as long as you wish. Okay, and then you can choose 32 core, 52 core, 64 core, 128 cores. Okay, any size you like. And the second thing is that you have the ability to control your versions, the version flexibility and full control. So this one actually is very important, especially for UAT or development testing, right? Sometimes you want a newer versions for testing, and you don't want to upgrade all your VMs at the same time, right? Your testing environment may be more advanced than your production. But sometimes you also want to align the versions between production and UAT. So OCVS give you this flexibility, okay? And then third thing is that the license include. So all the VMware license, such as vSAN, vSphere, are included in OCVS. So if you have a more dynamic development testing, for example, for performance testing or UAT testing, you don't need to cater those license. You don't need to worry about over investment on licensing, right? Whatever you need or whatever you use, then you pay for that. Okay. So one of my customer is IRBand. Okay, IRBand, they want to they actually roll out their core banking system. I think it's last year, July last year, and they need a training environment. Okay, but that time, you know, it's so difficult to source hardware. It's a supply chain crisis. Okay, even now. Okay, and also they are looking for a solution is a more cost effective for the training environment. So they choose OCVS, and they see around 55% TCO reduction if compared to on-premises. Okay, and then this year they convert it from 1 year commit to 3 year commit because they are very, very happy with the OCVS, the performance, the stability, and also the security will be provided to them. Okay, and then they move more production environment to this OCVS. Okay, so in a quick summary, I think I can say why our customer choose OCVS. So the first one is full control, is more secure. Okay, the second one is lower price, lower TCO. The third one is that faster migration and low risk. And 4 is modernized with Oracle Cloud, especially if you have some Oracle database runnings, right? You want to move your database together with VMware to the cloud, then OCVS will be a good choice for you. Okay, so let me explain a little bit in these 4 points, right? The first one, full control and more secure. It means that you can own the VMware root access and password, not Oracle. Okay. And then second one is that you can control the VMware software version and patching. So you will less worry about those application compatibility issues. Say, for example, if you are running Avaya, Vim backups, or other backup solutions, or other third-party packaged application, they may have a certain requirement on the VMware versions, right? So you need to consider this one. And then you cannot lose control of both ends. Okay, at least you need to control either application side or the VMware side, right? And of course, this server is dedicated for you. It's not shared with others. And the entire environment is running within your own virtual cloud network. And you have full control of VCN, DLG, NAT, IG gateway, and also NXT tier 0 and tier 1 gateway. Okay, you have a control of tier 0 and tier 1 gateway, and you have a full control of the micro-segmentation between NXT. Okay, so this is very, very important. Okay, so this is some example I just show you. If you look into the Vim, you will see, okay, if you upgrade from, say, for example, VMware 7 U2 update 2 to 7 update 3. But if unfortunately, if you are running these versions, okay, then you need to upgrade to VM this version, or even worse, if you are upgrade from update 1 to update 2, and you're running VM version 10, you need to upgrade to version 11. Otherwise, maybe there's no backup, right? And then this is another example I just show you, Avaya's call center application. So if you upgrade from 6.7 to 7, then actually your application need to be upgraded, okay? Or if from 6.7, 6.5 to 6.7, then sorry, your application need to be upgraded. And you know the application upgrade will be very, very challenging, right? Okay. So the second one is lower cost, okay, lower price. We have a study, and then if we compare with compares to VMware Cloud on AWS, actually the core price, right? You will see OCVS is much cheaper. Okay, even per GB RAM, we will be much cheaper because we can provide you 2 terabytes memory per host. Okay, and per terabyte storage, we are also cheaper. Okay, and also compared to Google Cloud or others, you will see Oracle OCVS are all cheaper than other vendors. Okay, and lower cost. The other thing is that if we compare to on-premises, right? Then if you run VM on OCVS, you don't need to think about license cost, hardware cost, storage cost, networking, maybe a little bit, very, very minimum, 1 or 2% of total cost, right? And then you don't need to think about facility cost. Everything is included in OCVS. And the other thing is that you can also leverage those different skills. I mean the different pricing skill. For static workload, you can use 3-year commit skill, which give you a 46% discount. Okay, and for the bursting or for DL scale out, something like that, right? You can use hourly commit. The minimum is 8 hours, and it's very, very cheap actually. Okay, so you can, for example, just pay 1,000 or 2,000. You can add couple new hosts, okay, to support your environments for days. Okay, so it's a very, very cheap compared to on-premises. And then the other one is networking. Okay, so one thing I would like to highlight, because I'm not so sure how familiar, so how you are familiar with Oracle, right? So all the ingress and egress data between AD is free. Between AD is also free, okay? And between regions, the only egress data will be charged. Okay, ingress data will not be charged, only egress data. But we provide you 10 terabytes per month, free of charge. Okay, so the egress data, we will provide you 10 terabyte egress data, okay, per month, and it is free. Actually, it's a quite good, very, very good number compared to our competitor. They provide you maybe 100 gigabyte, right? We have 10 terabyte. Okay, the other thing is that if you set up a fast connect or dedicated link between your data center and Oracle Cloud, all the ingress data and egress data are free. So this is, again, is very, very important to my customer. So you think about if you move hundreds of VMs to the cloud, right? Then your user actually is a sit in your office, in your data centers, right? So all the traffics, they will come from your office to OCVS. Okay, so if you use dedicated fast connect, then all egress data here will be free. But other vendor will charge you. Okay, this number will be very, very big. Okay, and then via IPsec VPN, the egress data will be charged, but you can leverage the 10 terabytes egress data here. Okay, so you have a quota of 10 terabyte free of charge. Okay, so even from those VM to the internet, the egress data will be charged, but again, you can leverage 10 terabyte egress data, right? So compared to AWS, for examples, our price will be something like this one. For private connection, we charge you just by port is about $150 or $180 per month. That's it. Okay, and then we don't charge you those egress data. And this is another for the public connection. Okay, we give you the first 10 terabyte is free, and then after that, the unit price actually is much lower than others. And that's why Zoom is using Oracle. They stream a lot of videos, right, from Oracles to us. Okay, so the network charge, they reduce a lot. Around 80% to 90%. Okay, and then the other thing is that if you move OCVS to the cloud, you will also thinking about how can I back up and then restore, right? And then you will need using block storage or object storage, right? So compared to other cloud vendors, Oracle's object storage and block storage is way cheaper. Okay. And then the other thing is that if you think further for the cloud native migration in day 2 or maybe 1 or 2 years later on, right? Oracle's virtual machine actually is cheaper than others. Okay. So the third thing is a faster migration. So actually it's quite simple. You create one virtual cloud network in 2 minutes. You create a fast connect and configure it maybe hours. And then you fill in some parameter in 5 minutes, then OCVS will be created in 2 hours. Okay, in around 2 hours. Then you install HCX. This may take you half day, but most of the time may struggling in your site, actually in customer site, to set up, reconfigure those firewall. Okay, and then after that, you select those VM and then migrate. Okay, so it's quite simple. That's why my customer, they can migrate hundreds of VMs in 2 to 3 months. It's very, very simple. Okay, and the VMware solution actually is very good. And faster migration also means that after you move your VM to OCVS, you can put 100% of your efforts into digital transformation, right? So your digital transformation will come with a lower risk and faster. But if you go to cloud native, that may take you maybe months, okay, or years. Actually, we see so many customers, they take years to transfer their IT to cloud native, okay, because you need to study a lot of things about those application dependency, right? And the third thing is we also have a team, a dedicated team to help you to design the OCVS and migrate certain number of VM free of charge. And of course, this is subject to approval, okay? And then the last thing is that once you move your applications or VM to OCVS, you can access to 100 adjunct cloud services immediately, such as HPC, GPU, AI, and ML, right? So we have partners and customers in Australia. They moved their application to Oracle's recently to OCVS. And then the next step, actually, they are testing GPU today. So they are very happy because VM is running on OCI, GPU is running on OCI, and the VM migration just take them around 2 months. Okay. And the third thing is that you can transform to cloud native at any time. You don't need to think about those dependency issues. So here is a quick summary compared to different situations. For example, compared to on-premises, you can have a faster provisioning from month to hour, right? You have a better performance. We provide you all NVMe storage and the network is 100 gigabit per second. Okay, the network is very, very good. It's not a hub and spoke network. It's a next generation network. Okay, better scalability, and also not to mention those security we in place in the data center and also in the architecture. And compared to cloud native, you don't need to change anything to your workload, right? You just migrate VM to VM. So you can migrate as a is and also as a whole. You can migrate a group of VM to OCVS. So no dependency issues. And you can even achieve zero downtime migration thanks to the live migration provided by HCX. And there's no vendor login. Okay, you can move back, okay, to any other clouds or on premises, right? And then compared to other VMware cloud, we can provide you lower TCO and give you the full control. Root access actually is very, very unique in OCVS. It's not presented in other VMware cloud. And also you have the flexible billing, okay? Even you commit to use 3 years, you don't need to pay 3 years all upfront, but you still enjoy very, very deep discount, 46% discount, okay? And also you get the single vendor support, and also you have the management option. Management option means that you can choose to manage OCVS by yourself, or you can acquire a partners or Oracle professional service to help you to monitor and also help you to manage the VMware version and patching. Okay, and OCVS is available in all commercial regions. So the next question is come to more technical. How is Oracle Cloud VMware solution built, right? And then what is it looks like? So I would like to pass it to Jatin for those details.
Okay, thanks, Vincent. If you can, stop your screen sharing so that I can start. Thank you. And also, if you guys have any question, please let us know in the chat box, or probably put those questions under Q&A section so that we can take care of all these questions. So in this section, I will quickly go through with some of the technical details, and also I have a simulated demo which will demonstrate how to create Oracle Cloud VMware solution in OCI. So it's going to be a bit technical, but I'm sure you guys will like the demo as well as the content which is being presented over here. So the first thing is hardware configuration. As Vincent said, to have a VMware SDDC in OCVS, it is ideally minimum 3 ESXi hosts to 64 ESXi hosts per VMware SDDC. But we do support single node SDDC as well, and that is only for POC and testing purpose. But either way, whether you are going with the single node SDDC or you are going with 3 to 64 node configuration, you have a flexible choice of choosing between Intel or AMD EPYC nodes. And mind you, this is the only solution, this is the only hyperscaler solution that offers you the AMD EPYC node. Also, the resource footprint, if you compare this to the other hyperscaler solution, it provides you the highest number of compute, network, and storage resources. So depending on what is your use case, what is your usage that you envision, you can either go with Intel or you can go with the AMD. With Intel, you get one compute chip, which is bare metal dense IO 52. This is the same bare metal host that Oracle provides to its customer as the bare metal node, irrespective whether they want to choose to run the OCVS or they want to run any other workload on the bare metal. So these are very purpose-built bare metal server only for the OCI, right? With this Intel, you get 52 cores, 768 GB of memory, and it comes with 52 terabyte of NVMe locally attached, fast performing, high performing storage. Among these 51 terabyte of NVMe storage or 54 terabyte of NVMe storage in case of AMD, it has 8 disks, and in each host you have one disk which is dedicated to the cache tier, which is the vSAN cache tier, and the 7 NVMe disk will be utilized for the capacity tier. So you roughly get around 40 terabyte of usable vSAN capacity per ESXi host if you go with the Intel based VMware SDDC. In case of AMD, you have three options. You can either spin up a 32 core AMD node or 64 or 128 core. Again, depending on your usage, you have a flexible option to pick and choose how much compute resource that you want. But irrespective of which core specification that you are going with, you will get 2 terabyte of memory for all the three core options. And the storage footprint is also on the higher side on the AMD node. So instead of 51 terabyte, here you get 54 terabyte, and you get around 46 terabyte of usable capacity per ESXi host in the vSphere or vSAN cluster. The network interface is also on the higher side. On Intel, you have 50 Gbps of uplinks, and in AMD you have around 100 Gbps. So again, you have very flexible options in terms of which node specification you want to go with, whether you want to go with the Intel architecture or you want to go with the AMD EPYC architecture. And even within the AMD, you have an option to start with the lower form factor, and you can very well start with the 32 core, and you can have the option to deploy 128 cores. This is a quick glimpse of how the provisioning looks like, and I will actually give you a simulated demo. But to begin with, it just takes few inputs for you, like what should be your SDDC name, in which compartment you would like to deploy the SDDC. There are HCX options that you have to select. So by default, the OCVS offers you the advanced license, right? And if you want, you can also pick and choose the enterprise license as well. And depending on which license you are choosing, your cost may vary. But by default, the cost that you see on the OCVS includes the HCX advanced license already. But if you select the enterprise license, there may be an additional cost that can incur in the final billing. But by default, you have the VMware HCX advanced included in the OCVS bundle. Following VMware software versions are available. 7 Update 3. In past, we used to offer 6.5 and 6.7 as well, but as all of you are aware, both 6.5 and 6.7 are end of general support in the month of October. And we have removed, I think today is the date where we will be removing the option to deploy 6.5 and 6.7 base VMware SDDC. So currently, if you are deploying the OCVS, it is recommended that you should start with 7 Update 3. If there are any specific reason, probably you can work with Oracle and get some exception to deploy 6.5 or 6.7 base VMware SDDC as well. But as a best practice, I think we recommend you to start with 7 Update 3. This is very interesting. Pricing interval. So you have hourly commitment, monthly commitment, 1 year and 3 year. If you have a scenario where your workload life cycle seems to be very low, or it's getting spin up or spinning down at a very quick pace, I think you should start with hourly or monthly commitment. Scenarios such as cloud burst. You don't know how much load you will receive on your workload. So you will spinning up the workload on the go. And at the same time, you will be bringing down your workload at a very rapid pace. So that's the cloud burst scenario for you. Probably you just want to test few things within your environment. So you just want to spin up an environment. Probably it can be a single host VMware SDDC environment. In such scenarios, it is recommended that you start with hourly and monthly. But you see that you have a stable environment which requires longer workload retention periods. It is better to start with 1 year or 3 year commitment. So depending on your usage, you can pick and choose different pricing tier and different pricing interval commitments. As I've said, once you provide all the basic information, it asks you to select the compute shape. So if you click over here on the chain shape, you have the option of Intel as well as the option for AMD as well. The OCPU count over here is given as 64, but if you look at the bare metal specification, it says E4 128. So the point is the bare metal has 120 core as a whole, but in the configuration specification, you have the option to select the number of OCPU cores. So you can specify how many cores you want to give, either 32, 64, or 128. So depending on your use case, you can configure the AMD EPYC shape as well. As I've said, there is an option to enable the single host at SDDC as well. So this is the checkbox that allows you. There is one slight difference between Intel and AMD. In Intel-based node, we have an option to deploy shielded instance. If you are familiar with vSphere features such as secure boot and trusted platform module, if you want to leverage those security features, you can enable the shielded instance, and this is only supported on the Intel-based ESXi host and not on the AMD base. Having said that, it does not mean that AMD shape becomes less secure or more vulnerable to the security vulnerabilities. It's just that AMD host has different ways of providing you the security. So for example, there is a security feature in AMD which is known as AMD SEV, Secure Encrypted Virtualization. If you have been following the vSphere release, then we did support AMD SEV in vSphere 7. So by default, whatever vSphere features that is supported on either Intel or AMD will be supported on OCVS as well. So there is no guardrail, there is no blocker in terms of using any vSphere features that is supported on Intel or AMD-based ESXi host. So the point that I'm trying to highlight is both Intel and AMD has built-in hardware level security. With Intel, it is the shielded instance. With AMD, they have ARM chip, which is known as SEV, Secure Encrypted Virtualization, and that is very well supported by vSphere. So you can leverage any of these ESXi hosts and still able to manage the security at the bare metal node itself. How to design your network. So depending on your sizing, so the way it happens is you create a VCN. Our recommendation is to create a VCN large enough so that it can be subdivided into further network segment. So the idea is you have a large network CIDR and you break that particular network CIDR into a smaller chunk. When I say you break, it means the workflow will create all these network segments for you automatically. You don't have to create all of these VLANs or network segments on your own. And this is something which we will demonstrate in the demo section. Just for a reference, if your SDDC CIDR block is /24, which roughly gives you 255 IP addresses, your network segment size, and when I say network segment, so when we build OCVS, there are few network segments that are required. For example, you need a vSAN network, you need the NSXT VTAP network, you need the uplink between your OCI and your OCVS. You need VM kernel ports for your vSphere, vSAN, vMotion. So all of these networks are the individual network segments within the SDDC network. So depending on your CIDR sizing, you have different sizes of your segment. Our recommendation is to start with /21 only because it gives you the option to scale your VMware SDDC footprint from 3 ESXi hosts to 64 ESXi hosts. Because /21 is large enough CIDR to provide the IP addresses for all the 64 ESXi hosts in the cluster. But if you have a smaller requirement, you don't foresee a scenario where you will be scaling up your VMware SDDC, probably you can start with the smaller CIDR block. But having said that, larger CIDR block does not incur any additional cost to you. So it is very well accepted. There is no downside of having a large CIDR block during the initial phase itself and then start deploying your VMware SDDC. So irrespective what is your sizing, my recommendation is to always start with the larger CIDR block so that you can always have a room to scale your VMware SDDC footprint. The SDDC workload network, well, this is the network that provides the networking connectivity to your workload networks, right? The workload virtual machine. When we say the workload virtual machine, these are the machines that are spin up spun up by the customer itself. It can be an application workload, it can be a database workload, it can be a file server, right? So depending on what is your networking requirement within your customer tenancy, these workload networks are powered by the NSXT segments. So all the SDDC network are the OCI network within the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and whatever is the workload network are the NSXT segments within the VMware SDDC. Also, we have integrated OCVS with the monitoring and logging stack within the OCI. So if you want to throw or if you want to push these alerts to the OCI monitoring stack, we can enable these notifications, and we can configure these notifications to receive the alerts on our email, on our Slack. There is a service called PagerDT. So it can very well integrate all those VMware-based alerts and notification into the OCI monitoring stack as well. So within the OCI, you can also monitor the VMware SDDC stack as well. So let me quickly switch to the demo and show you a quick demo in terms of how to spin up a VMware SDDC within the Oracle Cloud. Let me know if there are any questions. Okay. So what you see over here is this is the Oracle Cloud Console. What I have is the region. These are my user details. So depending on where you have the entitlement, and this is something which you basically work with us or Oracle to determine where you want to deploy your VMware SDDC. And based on that, we provide you the entitlement or related quota or related capacity in a specific region. So you can pick and choose the region over here. Once this is selected, you can go to the networking. And in this part, we will create the virtual cloud network. If you are familiar with the VMware VMC on AWS, AWS has a construct called VPC. Similarly, the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure has a construct called VCN, Virtual Cloud Network. This is the isolated network for a specific customer tenancy itself, right? So for example, within VMware, I have different BUs, I have different organization, and I can have different VCN for each of those BUs or each of those organizations. So let me click on Start VCN Wizard. And what you see over here is it will create one public subnet, one private subnet, and we will discuss what is public and what is private in a quick section. And the public subnet is connected through Internet Gateway. Private subnet is connected through NAT and Service Gateway. So these gateway allow you to have communication either with your on-premises data center or either through with the internet. So for example, any instance that is deployed in the public subnet can have an public IPv4 or IPv6 address. It is the public address that can be accessible, and it can be routed through the internet gateway. But instances those are deployed under the private subnet will not have an IPv4 public IPv4 VNIC assigned to those private subnets. They will have the private IP address, and those private IP address will be translated, and then only you will be able to communicate to the internet. Only the outbound connection, internet connection is allowed. And in case of internet gateway, both outbound as well as the inbound connection is allowed. We also have another construct which we call it as the service gateway. So Oracle Cloud has its own cloud native services. And if we want to connect to these services, we can simply configure a service gateway, and through service gateway, we can access all of those cloud native services. So this particular wizard will actually create one public subnet, one private subnet, and then it will create internet gateway, NAT gateway, service gateway. And it will also place some default routing rule and security rules to establish the connectivity between these different components, right? So VCN Wizard is basically a guided workflow that will create all of these constructs for you. And you don't have to manually create each of these communications or each of these resources within the OCI. So let's provide the VCN name, which is the OCVS actual VCN1, and we will just provide a CIDR. And it is important to note over here, the VCN CIDR is /16. /16 gives you somewhere around 35,000 IP address. This is a very large CIDR block, but the idea is you should have a large enough CIDR block so that you can host a more number of VMware-based workload within the OCI. And I will provide you the public subnet CIDR, which is the 40. And these CIDR range can be anything of your choice, but just make sure that the CIDR range does not have conflict with other CIDR range within the OCI environment that you have, or within the customer STDC network. Otherwise, it may become an issue in the later part of deployment. So as you can see, we in this workflow, we are also creating the internet gateway, NAT gateway, and the service gateway. The NAT gateway is very important component for OCVS because once you have the VMware SDDC environment created within the OCI, you may have a requirement where those workloads, those are deployed in OCVS, are required to communicate with the internet. So those communication will be routed through NAT gateway, and that is why it is important to have the NAT gateway deployed within the VCN as well. So that's why we have used the VCN wizard to create all of these components. So it takes a little bit of time, which is roughly about a minute or so, and then it creates all these resources for you. Once this is done, you can view the resource and you can see what are the subnet route tables it has created. You can come over here and under hybrid, you have the option to deploy VMware SDDC and pick a compartment. In this case, it is VMware. I will click and choose create SDDC. Now, I'm sure most of the audience in this webinar comes from the SDDC background, and I'm sure that you may have experience of building the data center from scratch. So just think about it, racking, stacking the server, cabling the data center, and making sure that all those networking requirements are in place. Those stuff itself take quite a good amount of time. And if all the coordination goes well between your equipment team, between your data center team, between your network, compute, and other operations team, uh, then only that deployment succeeds in the on-prem environment. But what we are witnessing over here is we have created a VCN within the OCI, and now we are just providing some specification that we need for the VMware SDDC. And it just takes a couple of hours to deploy 3-node ESXi host VMware environment. And this includes NSXT, this includes HCX, this also includes vCenter server and ESXi host configuration. Let me take a question. So far, there is no, so there is a question by anonymous. Okay, so haven't provided the name. Okay, so is Oracle giving any test environment to test the VMware service like others giving AWS and Microsoft? No, we don't have any testing tier as of now, but what we have is the hands-on lab. That link I can provide you, so you can log into that hands-on lab and get some initial experience of Oracle Cloud VMware solution. Okay, depending on your pricing, you have different pricing tier, and you just have to select which compute shape you want to select. So in this case, I'm selecting the Intel, but if you select AMD, it will just showcase the AMD specification. So select the checkbox, select the shape, and then if you want to enable shielded instance, you can enable this checkbox. And this is very interesting. So the way you will interact with ESXi host is through the public key and private key SSH key pair. So what I have done is I have generated an SSH key pair and uploaded its public key. So once the SDDC is built, I will use this private key and authenticate the ESXi host using its private key. If that is the way you want to go ahead, that's also good. Otherwise, you will have the root access to your ESXi host as well. Select the VCN And in this case, this is the same VCN that we have created. Now there are two options, create new subnet and VLANs, which means that this workflow will create all the networking resources that is required for you to build the VMware SDDC. These resources include your vSAN, vMotion, all the VM kernel ports that are required. Otherwise, there is another option. If you want to have your own custom networks, subnets, and VLANs configured for OCVS, you can create those first in the OCI. And then in this particular option, you can select the respective resource and map those resources to the respective VM kernel port or respective network. But that's not really a recommended way because first, it is time consuming. Second, this is error prone. And if you go with the first option, the workflow will take care of all your networking requirement. Now, in this case, I will use the CIDR as /21, which will give me somewhere around how many? I don't know the number, but yeah, it gives me large enough IP address so that I can have all the networks as well as I can have 3 to 64 ESXi host vSAN or vSphere cluster environment within the OCVS. Now, the networks that you see over here are the networks used by the VMware SDDC. So for example, you have a VM kernel port for replication, you have a VMK port for provisioning, you have a network for HCX, you have the management network, which is vSphere, this is the vSAN VM kernel port, this is vMotion, and all the CIDR mapping that you see over here is automatically calculated by the workflow itself. So you don't have to do any of the configuration on your own. Just provide the basic information and network will be set up for you. This is the optional parameter, which is like, okay, I have the VMware SDDC setup. And once this setup is done, I would like to immediately start deploying the customer workload or my own workload within the VMware environment. So this SDDC workload network is essentially the same SDDC workload CIDR. Click next and just go ahead and create the SDDC. And it will take roughly about 2 hours to deploy all of these resources for you. And once it is done, you can go ahead within this particular page, which is under VMware Solution, Software Defined Data Center, and you can get all the information that is required uh, for you to understand. And you can monitor the task over here under the work request. If you click on this, it will tell you what are the execution this particular job is performing at the moment, and you can monitor the progress. And once it is done, you can go back to the SDDC overview page and you can understand the vCenter server URL, its username, password, and all those credentials that are required you to access the environment. Let me know any question on this. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone? Where to find Oracle Zone customer doing DR activity every month? I can provide you a link. There is a link which is, okay, Vincent is providing you. So there's a link which provides you all the OCI region and its detail, and you can find all those information over there. So let me quickly go back to the presentation and let me explain you what we have done so far. So we had the OCI region. Each region have its 3 availability domain, AD1, AD2, and AD3. You can understand availability domain as the individual data center within the same region, and all of these data centers are interconnected with each other. And when we deploy OCVS VMware SDDC, it deploys on a single OCI availability domain within the defined OCI region that is available for you. Within a single OCI availability domain, you have 3 fault domain. You can understand the fault domain as different racks altogether. And when you deploy OCVS VMware SDDC, depending on your number of ESXi hosts, these ESXi hosts get splitted across different fault domains, which are essentially different hardware racks where your hardware is deployed at, right? So these are the individual bare metal server that is deployed under different fault domains. So you have 3 fault domains for the fault tolerance and high availability. Once the VMware SDDC is deployed, it is deployed across all the 3 fault domains. So your appliances gets distributed as well. So your NSXT controller nodes will be deployed on one ESXi host, second node will be deployed on second, third will be deployed on third. This is just for the high availability, and this is like a best practice uh, and the recommended way to deploy the VMware SDDC environment. Also, you have the vCenter server, HCX appliance, as well as the NSXT Edge, and all the management appliances that you need to deploy the VMware SDDC. And once it is deployed, you can start deploying your workload virtual machine, and the workload virtual machine networking will be backed by the NSXT. So you can manage your workload networking with the NSXT segments. This is how a high-level networking architecture looks like. So you have the customer on-premises on the left-hand side, which is, we call it as customer premises equipment, CEP. And your OCI will be connected through Fast Connect. And on the OCI side, you have a router which is known as DRG, Dynamic Routing Gateway. So Dynamic Routing Gateway is the interface with which you will connect your Fast Connect. And on the other side, you will have your own customer equipment. And together, these two endpoints will establish the connection or communication between the two sides. Within the OCI region, you have the virtual cloud network, VCN. That is what we have defined. For the network connectivity to the internet from VCN, you have the NAT or IG gateway, which is the NAT gateway or internet gateway. To connect your Oracle Cloud services, the cloud native services, for example, identity access, object storage, autonomous database, you have the service gateway. And all of these communication can be managed via the VCN routing table. So you can create different route rules to establish different communications. However, within the VMware SDDC, this is how it looks like. You have the bare metal nodes and you have different networking segments. And mind you, these networking segments are the workload network. So it can be an application network, it can be a database network, it can be any type of network that is required for the customer within the OCVS. All of these NSXT segment gets attached to the tier 1 gateway, and through tier 1 gateway, it goes to the tier 0 gateway. And in the next slide, I will explain you how the tier 0 gateway is connected with the outside environment and with the VMware SDDC. So what you have over here is different networking segment that I have specified, right? So you have the provisioning network, you have the vSphere, vMotion, HCX, vSAN on all of these networks. And all of these networks are backed by the VCN routing. And through VCN routing, they are connected to dynamic routing gateway for the on-premises connectivity, or they can be connected with your public subnet and the private subnet as well. So if a customer wants a connectivity within the on-premises networking, this is how the connectivity looks like. So customer will connect through their on-premises equipment, and that is basically a router on their side. And through a fast connect interface, they will route that particular traffic to DRG through the VCN. One second. And from DRG, you will have routing through VCN, and VCN will forward that particular traffic to tier 0 gateway. And then from tier 0, it comes to tier 1, and then from tier 1 to a respective networking segment. Similarly, if we want to connect to the OCI, so this workload, which is the virtual machine, this is deployed within the OCVS. So it communicates through tier 1, tier 0, goes out of the OCVS network through VCN routing. And depending on the routing rule, it interface with the service gateway and access the Oracle Cloud services for you. This is very important thing because if you notice over here, now because your VMware SDDC is sitting within the public cloud infrastructure, it has a close proximity with your public cloud services. And I do have one example to demonstrate. These are just another way to understand the different networking use cases. So when I was saying the close proximity with public cloud services, this is one example, and this is an excellent example. The use case is very simple. How can I create the NFS data store using a public cloud service? And in this case, the public cloud service is the OCI file storage service, file system service. This service allows you to export the NFS3 volumes, and you can then take this volume and create an NFS data store within the VMware SDDC. It is very simple. I will go to the storage section. I will create a file system and then provide all the details that is required. One second. Okay, provide all the details, file system name, what is the export information. Export is the mount target, which we can understand it as the NFS server. So over here, I'm just providing the file system name. Over here, I will just create a file export. This is like a file system export that we will be mounting on any client. It can be a Windows, Linux, but in our case, it will be the ESXi host. And the mount target is the NFS endpoint through which ESXi host will communicate to it. You can understand this as the NFS server. So what you understand is what I have done is I have provided the mount target name, and then I have selected the VCN. It is important to provision this mount target within the same VCN where your OCVS instance is deployed. Select the subnet, and once you do that, it basically provision an IP address, a network interface through which the ESXi host can communicate to. There is no extra or there is no additional configuration is required because you will be using the same SDDC network that you have used for the VMware SDDC. So by default, it's in the same network that you have the OCVS deployed in. And once the file system is deployed, you can actually go to the file system details, click on this, click on the export, and it will just grab the mount command. And what you see over here is this is your IP address, this is your NFS server IP address, and this is your file export. And just grab these details, come to the VMware SDDC, and this is how your VMware SDDC looks like. A simple as is VMware environment that we all have been using for years now. Provide the username, provide the file system name, NFS data store name, folder name, and the server name. And if you remember, these are the same details that we have got uh, through the export mount command. And if you see over here, this is your NFS endpoint through which your ESXi host will communicate to. And dsdiv is the file export that we want to mount as the NFS data store within the VMware SDDC. Provide all these details and mount this file export on all the ESXi hosts. Click next. And what we are seeing over here is a new NFS data store created, which is backed by the OCI file storage service. And look at the capacity over here. This is 8 exabyte. 1 exabyte is equal to 1024 petabyte. So the point over here is you have unprecedented scale of your compute network and storage resources at a very low price, and whatever capacity or whatever storage resources that you will consume, you will only be charged for those specific resources only. So even though you have 8 exabyte of capacity available for you to use, but it is just pay as you go model. This is just a logical capacity that is available for you. So you basically have an uninterrupted storage capacity that is available to you. And this is another way of extending your VMware SDDC storage capacity. Your vSAN remains the primary storage option for the OCVS VMware SDDC. But after a while, if you run out of your vSAN capacity, you can either add an additional ESXi host if you are running out of your compute capacity as well, or you can rebalance your workload and create an NFS data store within the OCI and within the OCVS, and you can migrate some of the workload or some of the data to the NFS backed data store. So this is just one example. And similarly, you can actually create the iSCSI block storage as well. So this one was NFS storage. Similarly, you can create the VMFS storage as well. It is very interesting that OCVS was also one of the first among the hyperscaler solution that has certified all the 3 different storage options that is available within the VMware environment: vSAN, VMFS, and NFS. So depending on your use case, you can pick and choose which storage provider you want to go with. vSAN, although remains your de facto primary storage provider, but you have an option to either deploy the NFS data store, or you can deploy a VMFS data store, which will be backed by the OCI block storage service, which will be the iSCSI block storage volume. So This demo demonstrate the file system demonstration. Similarly, you have an option to deploy the iSCSI block storage as well. So that's it from my side. Thanks for tuning into the session, and let me know if there are any questions. And we have a very good tech zone space where we have documented all of these things that we have spoken in this session. So you can visit this particular link, via.vmware.com/OCVS stack. Over to you, Raminder. That's it from my side, and I'm looking forward to questions if there are any. And myself and Vincent will be able to touch base on some of these questions.
Sure. Thank you, Jatin, and thank you, Vincent, for the wonderful session. I think it was pretty exciting to watch the demo and as well as listen to Vincent what many shared his thoughts. So thank you both of you, and thank you all of you who tuned in today for the VMUG Delhi session. If you have any follow-up questions for this Oracle VMware solution, then you can write to delhi@vmug.com, and we can connect you to both the speakers, Jatin as well as Vincent. Any particular queries? We have Ankit also who's joined in. He's a specialist there for Oracle, from Oracle. We can connect you with the relevant people and the stakeholders. So feel free to write and reach out to us at delhi@vmug.com. And once again, thank you everybody for joining in. The recording for this session would be available for you to watch. Where can we find the lab testing? Okay, we're getting some questions here. So I think there is a HOL, maybe Jatin.
Right. So so few things. I have shared my link to you, Raminder, because I'm not able to communicate with others in the chat box. So you can share that link with the others as well. That's where they can find all the publications and all the links. And let me also share one more link, which is the tech zone space. And let me quickly share my screen because there are so many information that you can get on the tech zone as well. I won't take much time, but I think it is worthwhile. So if you come over here, go to VMC tech zone, right? Even though we are speaking of Oracle Cloud VMware solution, but this is the same space for other hyperscaler solutions as well. And similarly, Oracle also has its own documentation link, and we can help you with that as well. But if you come over here on this page, which is vmc.techzone, and in the dropdown, select the Oracle Cloud VMware solution, you have the product documentation, you have the architecture, and this is the link for hands-on lab. And when you click on this, it leads you to the actual labs. And similarly, all the content that we have shared with you, you can find all the details over here on the vmc.techzone space as well.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So if you have any other follow-up questions, just feel free to write to delhi@vmug.com. We've already overrun time. So I want to thank you for the speakers. Thank you, Jatin, and thank you, Vincent, once again. And thank you, Ankit, for arranging this. And thank you for all the community members who joined in and tuned today. We will have the recordings uploaded soon.
Thank you.